Hey, what's up? Welcome back to another edition of the Mandatory Live. If you're rocking with the show, thank you so much. But if you haven't already subscribed, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Also, like the video. And remember, you can also follow us on our social media channels. We're at the Mandatory TKO. And you can find us on the audio side as well. So keep that in mind. So if you're on, looking for your podcast, your shows, leave a rate and review because why wouldn't you give us a 5-star? Yeah, I think the card is stacked. I think this is a great card. Obviously, there's one that I was looking forward to that didn't end up happening. And that one is Vergil Ortiz and Jaron Boots Ennis. And we got to get into this, Bryan, because there was so much back and forth going on Twitter X, whatever the hell you want to call it at this point. And the rumor was that they were in negotiations. And remember, we have to go back to Jaron Ennis fighting Karen Chukazan for the second time. In the post-fight interview, he said he was going to move up to 154 pounds.
Sure.
He said it. And maybe it was a post-fight interview, so maybe, I don't know what was going on, but sometimes I feel like they shouldn't do those, but they do. And he said he was going to move up to 154 pounds. They were going back and forth and negotiating. We don't actually know the full details of what really happened. This is all what is said to have happened, allegedly. And Jaron Boots Ennis and his team then tried to make the fight at 147 pounds when we know that Vergil Ortiz hasn't fought at 147 pounds for quite some time and that he got really sick the last time trying to get down to 147 pounds. Mm-hmm. So after Boots Ennis said he was going to move up to 154 pounds, he then tried to make the fight with Vergil Ortiz, who has fought his last 3-4 fights at 154 pounds.
Or make him move down. Whatever it is.
Yeah. Make him move down to 147 pounds. Bryan, is that a duck with a capital D, or how would you go about that? What are your thoughts on that?
It'll be framed that way. I want to hear Boots' side, actual side, not some shit you put out just refuting it on social media, but what actually happened there. But and there's another element to this that I want to get to shortly. But yeah, Boots Ennis, it's an interesting time for him because speaking of guys circling each other, we've been talking about Jaron Boots Ennis and Vergil Ortiz, formerly a welterweight, circling each other as next in this weight class at 147 and knowing that they were probably going to move up. And I think they're both going to be middleweights before too long. We're going to start talking about them being at 160. For the next 3 to 5 within the next 3 to 5 years. So these guys are going to be in each other's lives. And that's another fight that I think we're going to have to see at some point. To me, Jaron Boots Ennis has to come out and clear some stuff up because he looks a little funny here, especially considering that, I understand Karen Chukazan was his mandatory, but I mean, people who may not know any better, for better or worse, will look at his resume and be like, why did he have to beat this dude twice and look better the first time where we all kind of were could have done a better job of cutting off the ring, of, inflicting your power and pressure fighting so that Chukazan wasn't so comfortable just using his footwork and, slipping punches and backing away from you the entire time. And then he actually takes rounds off of Boots Ennis in the second fight. I didn't think he was amazing, but it showed some regression. And with Boots, he's another one where, all right, it's time now. You've got the wins, you've got the knockout ratio, you've got promotion in your corner, you've got a little bit more of a name now. His best win is it Romain Villa?
Oh my God, it might be Romain Villa. It might be Romain Villa. The one thing that I will say about this whole Jaron Boots Ennis thing is he's been wanting a big fight for the longest time. This was it.
He's 27.
This was the big fight. This was the big fight. This is what you wanted. Didn't you sign with Eddie Hearn? He signed with Matchroom, did he not?
And Vergil Ortiz is with Golden Boy.
Golden Boy.
Yeah.
And
zone to zone.
And
It's right there.
remember, because there was those contract issues that Jaron Boots Ennis was going through, and like sometimes like the politics, it's not like necessarily the fighter's fault at times when he doesn't
Sure.
get those big fights. Like, we don't really know what goes on in the back rooms when it comes to
And no
negotiations and
one's
stuff.
honest about it is the key thing. Like when you ask around, motherfuckers just be lying about.
And
No,
don't believe everything you see on social media either,
this
because you don't know
sport
what's real.
this sport lies more than professional wrestling. Seriously. Like I'm not even fucking joking. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
So in that sense, it's like he wanted the big fight. It's right there for you to fight Vergil Ortiz, and you say you wanted it 147 pounds. I'm not going to say he ducked, but it's disappointing. It's really disappointing on Jaron Boots Ennis, and it makes him look bad, to be honest with you. It does kind of make him seem like a duck. I would never call a boxer a duck, but it's kind of what it looks like at this point. And it seems like what's next for him after this? Right? Like, is he going to take a fight at 154 pounds and not fight Vergil Ortiz again?
Like,
Or, Brian, is it one of those things where maybe we get it later on and we actually get it in the States, which would be better because it's a massive fight.
yeah.
Like, it's a fight that I think should actually be in the States.
I think a lot of these fights should be in the States. Maybe I'm showing bias. I mean, you could put some in the UK too, but we're trying to get better atmosphere here, not just make fights for the sake of it. Anyway, I would say that look, if Boots Ennis is perhaps serious, when the IBF tells him, "Hey, you got to fight Chukadas on the second time," and you do it in your hometown this time because the first time was actually a co-feature on the card where Tank beats Hector Luis Garcia. Maybe instead of taking that fight, you move up to 154 and test yourself. Like at that point, he hadn't been a welterweight champion for very long, but welterweight's down right now. And at one point, it looked like welterweight was going to be the money weight class, but Crawford and Spence were just circling each other, not fighting each other, and they were trying to like come to terms with it, and that took years. And the weight class was in this holding pattern. We had asked Regis Prograis, one of our first interviews, where we were like, "Hey, would you move up to 147?" He's like, "I feel like 140 is just like a better, like more glamorous sort of weight class." I'm paraphrasing, but that's essentially what he said. Like he could make more money at 140, and I think that's true. Like that's something that we've talked about. Regardless. So I think right now with Boots Ennis, like, all right, your next move is going to be very interesting because you're talking about 2 wins over Karen Chukadazan, who by and large people had not heard of before he got this title shot. Like we were kind
No,
of
not at
all,
all.
yeah, like we were kind
I
of
didn't
all
even
like,
know how to pronounce his name. Like when I
yeah,
first saw it, I was like, how do you see this name? Like I had seen him fight before, but I did not know how to pronounce his name.
yeah. And a lot of people were like just learning about him. He had a loss prior. He beats Romain Villa, who got that upset over Rashidi Ellis, barely won that fight. And I thought Boots looked good in that fight. So it was like, okay, good. That's a good first title defense, interim title defense, but a title defense. Then it's David Avanesian, and I'm like, like uh, Terrence Crawford knocked him out like that on BLK Prime. Like Avanesian's, he's been in the ring with some dudes, but like that's okay. All right, it's in Philly. Okay, cool. And then this rematch with Chukada's on. So it's like, yeah, we need to see something with Boots Ennis. He's 27. He'll be 28 in June. And at this point, you're 33-0 with 29 knockouts. It's like 33-0, and your best win is probably Romain Villa. Like, okay.
I just want to see him in a big fight because I think he has all the talent in the world. And I do also think that, he's being set up to not only be the king at welterweight, but I also thought that he could be a big face for boxing. So he's still young, like he's getting up there in age, but I would hope that Jaron Boots Ennis, when he announces his next fight, that it's a big name. Let's get into some comments really quick. We got to go with Al the Pal. Ennis deserves to be on prelims. First fight of the fight card. Also, we'll stick with Al the Pal. Ennis shouldn't even be a main event or co-main event. Put him in the prelims. All right, not feeling
Well,
this.
he just fought, so I doubt that that's gonna happen.
Nerd. Karen is Boots' true nemesis. Well, he fought him twice, nerd. Right? He fought him first. Steven, thank you for joining the show. He said Boots is overrated and he hasn't fought any ex-champs. I don't believe that's true.
Sergey Lipinets.
Yeah, that's a good.
which is a good win. But I mean, still,
Very
like,
good win.
if you're
Lipinets is a very tricky fighter.
super tough, but like, I mean, point taken though. Like, honestly, like, I mean, he beat Thomas Delorme. I don't know if Thomas Delorme got to a title, but he did fight Terrence Crawford for a title before. He's been in the ring with some dudes also. I mean, but point taken. Like, he had, like, again, best win probably Romain Villa, maybe Sergey Lipinets. Now that I mention it, but like, I mean, what are we talking about?
I really like Lipinets, by the way.
Yeah,
Like, I think he's a fun fight to watch. Let's go to IMPK
and Boots
13.
kicked his ass. To be
Yeah.
fair, but I mean, kick more ass. Like,
Let's let Boots have one fight at 154 before Ortiz. So he kind of like a warm up.
I agree. But
Sure.
all right,
But it
let's
was
put.
right there for him. Like
Yep.
that's the only thing, right? Like, you've been saying like you're one of the best fighters for a little minute now.
I
You signed
mean,
with Matchroom because obviously business wasn't going the way that you thought it would, and now we're thinking, yo, you're gonna get these big ass fights. It's right there for you.
you
Vergil
know what?
Ortiz is right there. Like, this fight could have went down, and you want to have it at 147 pounds, and it's like Vergil hasn't even fought there for a minute. So I would hope when Jaron Boots Ennis announces his next fight, it's a big one, because not only does he deserve it, but like at this point, like, we're gonna be looking for him to have that big fight.
Let me throw some names at you before we move on to the second part of this conversation. At 154, if I tell you Boots Ennis is going to debut at 154 in the spring, and let's say it's not a direct title fight right away, because then I'll pull up the the weight class, but the title picture kind of a mess right now. But let's name some contenders first. Would you be excited for Boots Ennis versus Charles Conwell?
Yes, I would. I'm a nerd though, so
I would be too, by
I
the
like
way.
I like I
I
know you would. I
I
know
would
you.
be, and I'm
Charles
not. I'm
Conwell
not.
is a good fight, dude. Like, if you're okay, I might be the wrong person to ask,
Chat.
because
Go ahead.
yeah, because I do think that Charles Conwell is a good fighter. Like, that would be I think that's a tough fight, Brian.
I don't think that's a gimme for Boots at all.
No.
Here's one that you're going to be excited about, and I think this one would actually be smart for at least Boots. But Boots Ennis versus Tim Tszyu,
Yeah, I love it.
even after
That's
the last performance, I mean, people would want to see that fight.
yeah,
I think people come away being like, Tim Tszyu would at least push Boots Ennis and try to maybe get something special out of him. Tim Tszyu will be his best opponent that he's had so far.
100%. I think Tim Tszyu needs he needs a
Yeah,
little bit of another fight before he
yeah.
fights someone like Drawn Boots Ennis. So that's the only thing.
Let me give you like one more. Um, the winner of, because they're gonna fight each other, but so on the David Benavidez David Morrell undercard, and that's gonna be a few weeks before this Riyadh season card. That's gonna be February 1st. But if Boots Ennis fights the winner of Jesus Ramos and Jason Rosario, would you be excited about that?
No. No, like, what is that? In fact, I'd be bored as shit.
Erickson Lubin.
Don't do that. I like Erickson Lubin. Yo, don't do that to me. I like Erickson Lubin is a tough fight. But no.
Just listen. All I'm saying, not that I'd bet on Erickson Lubin, but I'd want to look at the odds just a peek. The champions at 154, WBC Sebastian Fundora, the interim Vergil Ortiz. He'll be defending that on the card that we just discussed. Terrence Crawford has the WBA. Jermell Charlo apparently is still the champion in recess. I mean, okay. Like, I forgot that he was boxing, because the Charlo brothers are famous for their activity. The WBO, excuse me, Sebastian Fundora, and the interim title belongs to Terrence Crawford, because I mean, for whatever reason, Sebastian Fundora has 2 titles, and so does Terrence Crawford.
And there was talk that Fundora was supposed to fight Ennis, but apparently they don't want to make that a title fight for Ennis. Is that correct? Because he's not ranked at 154 pounds.
Like, but he's a champion, so like he should be like, okay, if you're going by rules that we've seen in the past, and we actually like, Teofimo Lopez technically has a window to do this for the WBO at welterweight, but like, if he moves up at 154 and he's the IBF welterweight champion, maybe he can move up and challenge the IBF 154-pound champion, who just beat Tim Tszyu, Bakram Murtaza. I always struggle with this name. Murtazaliev, who just beat Tim Tszyu. Like, okay, if that's the fight for Boots Ennis, sure. I'd like to see that, because he destroyed Tim Tszyu in a fucking devastating way. And I'm not so sure, like, he's somebody that, I mean, Boots is gonna just walk over. I don't give a shit how talented he is. That's a tough ass fight.
No, I agree with you. Let's get to some comments really quick. We got our friend Steven. Thanks for letting us know there. He said, Lipinets was a champ. Won a vacant belt against a
That's what I thought.
no-namer,
Yeah.
then lost against Mikey Garcia. Steven, thank you for clearing that up for
Yeah.
us. Let's go back to Al the Pal. Ortiz biggest check he could have got and credit. Yeah, like that would have been a massive fight for both of them. The Saudi money was there. Like they were
I don't think that fight is dead though. They're both
no,
very
yeah.
young and I think this fight could happen even next year, but I mean, Boots is gonna have to play ball a little bit because after if Vergil Ortiz wins this next fight, like I can't say Boots is the A side in a fight with Vergil Ortiz. If Vergil Ortiz wins that next fight,
Not
because
not at 154 pounds. You know what's kind of
yeah,
interesting is like Jaron Boots Ennis was calling out Bud at 154 pounds. He pretty much said no to fighting Vergil at 154 pounds. So I think listen,
allegedly.
and we saw, yeah, allegedly.
Yeah, yeah.
But we saw, and like listen, we don't know the full story, but that's just what it seems like, right? But we saw Terrence Bud Crawford fight at 154 pounds and he fought Madrimov.
hmm
And now
And some people didn't
Ortiz.
think he looked great. So
Yeah, I mean, listen, he still won the fight and he
yeah,
won a lot of those rounds. I think I gave him 8 rounds in that fight.
something like that. Yeah, and
But
Vergil Ortiz really struggled his last fight.
yeah, but you know what? That's what I like about Vergil Ortiz because he's not perfect, but he's so fun to watch. The work rate's going to be there, and he made adjustments and he got it done. The one thing I will say though, Bud beat Madrimov. If Vergil beats Madrimov, I think Vergil is in a better seat to fight Bud than Jaron Boots Ennis is.
Which is what he's going after, which is why transition. He did not decide to fight Xander Zayas on this card.
Yes.
So Xander Zayas, who we've talked about extensively on this show, not just because I'm Puerto Rican, but because he's one of the best prospects in the sport and is trying to go from contender to champion, trying
Yeah,
to
and
make that
also
leap.
because you're Puerto Rican, but yes.
But also, yeah. But no, Xander's really good, and we've been pro Xander Zayas on this show. I think a fight with him and Vergil Ortiz would be great, but it's not happening. So basically, he says that he jumped at the opportunity to fight Vergil Ortiz in that February 22nd card or whatever the case may be. He also posted about this, like, I accepted the fight but never heard back. Did you just boots me to Vergil Ortiz?
And he said he accepted it in like a minute. They asked him and he
Yeah,
said yes. Like
yeah.
he was down 100% down to take that fight.
He said they were all in. Vergil Ortiz basically was like, you know, I have bigger fish to fry, whatever, which you just kind of outline. Like, if he beats Madrimov, then maybe we're talking about him facing Terrence Crawford. Clearly, it seems like that's
the path.
That's the fight to chase at 154 right now. A quote unquote aging Terrence Crawford, who probably would still whip anybody's ass, but you never know. Like, have you seen LeBron James play lately?
Yes, that's a whole different other conversation. But I will say this one thing: if Vergil gets it done against Madrimov, and then obviously the path is to fight Bud, that's a massive blockbuster fight, Brian. Even when it comes in terms of the storylines, because remember, Bud was the king at 147 pound alongside Errol Spence Jr. What was the narrative? That the young king Vergil Ortiz was coming up and he was going to take over that division. They move up to 154 pounds. There's also, listen, you know how it is in boxing. A lot of it has to do with Mexican Americans, like there's rivalries. Could you imagine all the smack talking between the fans, the Mexican American fans? Against Bud's fans, like it would get nasty. I'm telling you right now, the storyline would be crazy for that fight.